Hi, everybody. Welcome to day 2 of our biblical birth narratives study. And if you did not see yesterday, you might want to, because it kind of laid the groundwork for what we're doing here for a few days. I am recording this, I think, all at the same time, so I'll probably, you'll continue to see the fire behind me and Christmas tree in the corner and me in the same clothes. But it makes more sense than trying to come back to this and continue the flow, because I'm feeling in the flow right now, in the spirit. Assignment for today was to look over the beginning of the Gospel according to Matthew, if you had a chance to do that, and if not, I'll be covering some of it now. But the whole book of Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, is outlined like in sections, and the first section, which runs from the beginning of verse 1 through the 23rd verse of chapter 2, is the genealogy and birth of Jesus. So that's the part that we're looking at now. In other words, the first couple chapters of Matthew. If you did look at it, you found that it goes on for a lot of verses with a lot of names of people who were Jesus' ancestors on Joseph's side. And it says right in the beginning, this is the list of the ancestors of Jesus Christ, a descendant of David, who was a descendant of Abraham. Why would that be important? Well, who was Matthew's audience? Remember, they were Jewish believers. And so to establish who Jesus was, right in the first sentence, we're going to hear that Jesus is a descendant of David. And why was David important? Well, King David, great figure in Jewish history, was the one who united the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom. And that was sort of the epitome of Jewish reign in the state of Israel then. So Jesus is a descendant of David, who, they remind you, is a descendant of Abraham. Big important thing if you're Jewish, to be a descendant of Abraham. So it establishes there who Jesus is. And then from verse 2 straight through to verse 16, it just gives you a lot of names. And they're kind of the begats, like, you have in the book of Numbers. From Abraham to King David, the following ancestors are listed. And then it just lists off the ancestors so that you can trace it back. And it summarizes in verse 17 saying, so then there were 14 generations from Abraham to David, and 14 generations from David to the exile in Babylon, and then 14 from then to the birth of the Messiah. So these important mile markers are laid out as part of Jesus' legacy, ancestry. And you can, if you're a Jewish believer in Jesus, you take great pride in the fact that, oh, he's just like me. He has the same ancestry that I do. So then it goes on to talk about the birth. And some of the things that we have in Matthew include Joseph having an angel visit him when he finds out that Mary is pregnant and they're betrothed but not yet married. It says in verse 18, this is how the birth took place. His mother Mary was engaged to Joseph, but before they were married, she found out that she was going to have a baby by the Holy Spirit. And Joseph was a man who always did what was right. But he did not want to disgrace Mary publicly, and so he made plans to break the engagement privately. And while he was thinking about it, an angel of the Lord appeared to him and let Joseph know that, it's okay. She's having a baby by God, by the power of the Holy Spirit, and so it's okay to marry Mary. So an angel visits Joseph, and that's what allows everything to happen, because an angel is a messenger from God, even in Jewish tradition. So then it goes on and it talks about the visitors from the east, these religious leaders, probably Zoroastrian, coming from Persia, present-day Iran, looking for the baby, and the whole interchange there about Herod, very interesting. And Herod says he wants to go worship the baby, so please let me know where he is. Meanwhile, he's really feeling very threatened because Jesus is a king. The Magi said, we're seeking the king. There's a star leading us to the birth of a king. And he doesn't want to be thrown thrown off the throne, shall we say. And so he pretends to want to go worship, but the Magi know that he doesn't really. And so it says that they go home by a different route. And then an angel comes back to Joseph again and warns him that he needs to get out of Dodge and save the baby. So they fly. They escape to where? Egypt. And then a few verses are given to the telling of what's called the slaughter of the innocents. When Herod realized that the visitors from the east had tricked him, he was furious. He gave orders to kill all the boys in Bethlehem and its neighborhood who were 2 years old and younger. So now you have the Holy Family. They're in Egypt, and there's a massive killing of young babies going on, not unlike in the story of Moses. And we start to see these parallels with Moses' story growing up in Matthew's account. Okay, so the family's in Egypt. Of course, Moses was in Egypt. There's the slaughter of the innocents, and they're at Passover. God came and killed the firstborn of everything. There are parallels in Jesus' story and in Moses' story, and these things were not lost on the Jewish believers. And then what happens? Well, then an angel comes and tells them to return, so they come out of Egypt, just like the Hebrew people did. So these are very important foundational things if you're a Jewish believer in the first century. Trying to justify and understand who this Jesus person was. And so they come back and they get settled. And we'll pick up more about that tomorrow with Luke's reading. And that's what I'd like you to look at. Tonight is the beginning of the Gospel of Luke. Probably the first 2 chapters, maybe 3, but definitely the first 2 chapters. Take a look and see what's there and see how it's different from Matthew, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. Okay? We're one day closer to Christmas. How exciting. Is your shopping all done? I finished mine today, but I don't have anything wrapped yet, so I have to get going on that. But anyway, thanks for joining me for this prayerful pause with the pastor. I'm Pastor Deb Swift of South Presbyterian Church. Boy, there are a lot of P's in that, aren't there? Prayerful pause with the pastor, Pastor Deb Swift, Presbyterian Church. Whew. Anyway, I hope to see you back here tomorrow as we look at the gospel narrative, the birth narrative in the Gospel of Luke. All right? Bye for now. Have a great time. God bless. Take care.